Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathi Bailey. I work at the Monterey Institute of International Studies in Monterey, California. I'm delighted to be here today at this ABLA conference, the Association of Binational Centers of Latin America. This is my first trip to Colombia, and I hope to come back again. The title of my talk today is English in the 21st Century Global Knowledge Economy: The Implications of Some Research Findings. Although I work at the Monterey Institute as a professor of applied linguistics, I'm here today representing TIRF. Does anyone know what TIRF stands for? TIRF? As a matter of fact, TIRF stands for the International Research Foundation for English Language Education, and I'm happy to talk to you today as TIRF's president and as the chairman of its board of trustees. If you'd like more information about this foundation, you can visit our website at www.tirfonline.org. So what is TIRF? Well, TIRF was established as an independent foundation in 1998 by the board of directors of TESOL, Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages Incorporated. The TESOL board felt that it was important to establish an independent research foundation which would promote investigations in our field and disseminate the findings of that research as broadly as possible so as to influence policy decisions. TIRF was recognized as a charitable foundation under U.S. tax law in 1999. As an example of the sorts of ways that TIRF tries to promote research, every year we give doctoral dissertation grants in amounts up to U.S. $5,000 in order to support research on priorities that TIRF has established. At this time, the foundation has four main goals. The first is to implement a research and development program that will generate new knowledge and inform and improve the quality of English language teaching and learning worldwide. Our second goal is to promote the application of such research to practical language problems, and as you know, there are many such language problems that research can inform. The third goal is to collect, organize, and disseminate information and research on the teaching and learning of languages, though English is our primary focus. Finally, TIRF's fourth goal is to influence the formation and implementation of appropriate language education policies. But I want to stress that we are also trying to be cognizant of the complementarity of English as an international language and the importance of indigenous languages and cultures worldwide. These four major goals are carried out through activities in three domains: research, development, and dissemination. Our current focus, and the one which brings me to the topic of my talk today, is promoting research and best practices that will improve the use of English in the emerging global knowledge economy of the 21st century. And I know this is a topic of concern to ABLA leaders and teachers all around Latin America. Now I want to tell you about TIRF's Key Questions Initiative. What we're calling the Key Questions Initiative was started by TIRF's Board of Trustees in 2007. The focus was chosen by the board as a matter of international interest within the language teaching profession and beyond. The first study that we conducted in investigating what we believe are key questions affecting modern life is a study called The Impact of English and Plurilingualism in Global Corporations, and this was published by the Foundation in 2009. If you would like to have a free downloadable PDF of the full paper and the executive summary of that paper, they're both available on TIRF's website, www.tirfonline.org. Now let's talk about globalization, and I'll build a connection between globalization and the need for plurilingualism. Globalization has been defined as an ongoing process by which regional economies, societies, and cultures have become integrated through a globe-spanning network of communication and trade. Feely and Harzing in 2003 said that 3 out of 4 multinational companies managed networks of 20 or more overseas operations. Clear evidence of globalization taking place. Now, as you can see in the next slide, globalization unfolds in 2 stages. First, global media and business extend their reach into new domains throughout the world, and then they are relocalized in order to best meet the economic and social imperatives of functioning in these different regions of the world. This information is from a very interesting article by Mark Warschauer, which appeared in the TESOL Quarterly in 2000. Now I want to show you an image which represents the network of multinational corporations before globalization. These lines spanning the globe represent communication, transportation, and trade. Keep this image in mind. I'm going to show you another one similar to it in just a minute. What has been the result of globalization? Well, one interesting result that concerns us is that the percent of non-native English speakers in the Global 1000 companies has increased dramatically and continues to do so. Data from the World Trade Organization, which was shared by Reese Duca at the TIRF panel presentation in Boston at the TESOL Convention 2010, shows that in 1996, approximately 30% of the employees of Global 1000 companies were non-native speakers of English. By the year 2006, the proportion had jumped to 50%, and the World Trade Organization predicts that by 2011, 70% of the employees in Global 1000 companies will be non-native speakers of English. Now, let's look at Keeping these results of globalization in mind, let's return to our world map. As you can see, after globalization, the networks of multinational corporations around the world have greatly increased. Now, let's look at a timeline. I want to talk to you about the evolution of global corporations and what we're calling the global human network. As you can see, this is a simple timeline, running from 1950 on the left to 2020 on the right. In the 1950s, global corporations did business primarily through regional offices, and these offices around the world had a fair amount of geographic autonomy. Local languages dominated the office business in the regional offices, and English was used for the supply chain and the customer chain, communications with headquarters. As global integration began in the 1980s, the importance of English began to grow, but the English language was not yet imperative for employees of global corporations. However, in the 1990s, there was an explosion of the need for English language skills, and this is represented by the yellow starburst on our timeline. This was a defining period when companies began to use global integrated strategies and became digitally connected through what we're calling the global human network. In 2010, as you can see, English proficiency has come to be considered imperative. Now let's talk about the tipping point for the human network. Again, using a timeline that starts with 1950, we can see that in the middle part of the last century, the tolerance for poor English skills was rather high, but at the same time, the need for English skills was relatively low. Through the second half of the last century, the need for English skills gradually increased. At the same time, the tolerance for poor English skills began to taper off. And in the early years of the new century, there was a sudden increase in the need for English skills. At the same time, the tolerance for poor English skills dropped dramatically. So as you can see in this next slide, where the two lines come to cross, we have a huge English skills gap. That is, English skills are needed, but the tolerance for poor English skills is decreasing. Now, let's look at the next slide. Where the line representing the need for English skills begins to rise dramatically is the point at which the world became digitally connected. That is, advances in digital technology enabled rapid mass communication, interpersonal communication, and the sharing of information on a global scale never experienced before. Next, I'd like to share with you some really interesting findings from a survey of employees of global corporations. This survey was conducted and published by Global English in 2005. Over 25,000 respondents from 300 of the world's leading companies were surveyed about their use of English in their work. Fully 91% of the respondents indicated that English is critical or important in their work, but unfortunately, only 9% indicated that their current level of English was sufficient to do the job that they were expected to do. This finding indicates a critical need for English as perceived by the employees themselves. So what is it that corporations want? Well, it appears from the literature and from discussions with leaders in business and industry that corporations want solutions that deliver consistent results. These solutions need to be able to be rapidly deployed, and they have to be measurable on a global basis. The solutions should be cost-effective and they should be scalable. by which we mean they need to be able to increase or decrease in size as companies' needs increase or decrease. Referring again to the Global English Survey, it's clear that revenue and cost impact are the two main areas where English proficiency adversely affects the corporate bottom line. Let's take as an example a case study of British Telecom in Latin America. The countries involved in this particular study were Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. And an interesting example of employees who need English are the help desk operators. These are people who deal with client calls on a regular basis. They also have to deal with emails and conference calls on an average of 4 per week. What do they need to be able to do? Well, it's clear that for help desk operators, it's very important to be able to explain a problem in English, ask for and give clarifications, agree and disagree, and they need to be able to do this while all the time understanding the varied accents of the clients who call for help. Some of the negative impacts of English deficiencies for employees of British Telecom in Latin America include delays and mistakes in commercial proposals, poor communication with clients, and a fair amount of anxiety for the employees themselves. Now let's look at 21st century skills. What is it that employees need to be able to do in the 21st century? These data are compiled from a report by Corporate Voices in 2008. Well, it's clear that corporations want workers with strong academic skills, but they also need to have strong social, emotional, and cognitive development. In addition, employees need to show professionalism. They need to engage in teamwork. They need to have communication skills and critical thinking skills. A quote from the TIRF report says, "With employees from diverse linguistic and cultural backgrounds, strong language skills are needed to facilitate effective communication." Now let's look at two case studies in the TIRF report. One is from Reuters, the news agency, and one is from the Emirates Bank. The need in the case of Reuters was that they wanted to improve communications among their regional offices. In addition, they wanted to manage the negative consequences of the complexity of managing projects across time zones, cultures, and languages. Following English language training for employees, Reuters was able to report these business results. Employees' ability to produce and understand English emails improved by 86%, and their ability to participate in meetings in English improved by 79%. Their ability to provide assistance and to answer questions in English improved by 81%. And, interestingly, the employees' ability to help other non-native speakers use English improved by 54%. Now let's look at the case of the Emirates Bank. Here, the need was different. The Emirates Bank had a plan to change from a regional company to a global company. But as this plan was beginning to be enacted, the English abilities of the employees were not at a point where they would easily support this transition from regional to global markets. Following English language training, the Emirates Bank was able to report the following business results. First, they earned the first European Association of Quality Language Services certification awarded in their region. Second, they increased the number of employees trained in English by over 300% through the use of online learning. Third, there was high satisfaction and completion rates of the English programs undertaken. And they improved job performance after 3 months due to improved English abilities. So this is quite a success story. Now let's look at some European survey data. I'm going to share with you some data from German exporters, as reported by Espen et al. In 1999, French exporters, Marchessault et al. 1999, and Spanish exporters, Ali et al. 1999. And all of the references that I'm citing in this presentation are available to you at the end of the slideshow. First, if we look at the language used by 171 German exporters, English is clearly the language that they report using the most, with 93% of the export respondents saying that they use English. In addition, English is the most important language according to these 171 German exporters, with 87.7% saying that English was the most important, followed by French and Czech. What were the language skills used in the German export industries? Well, it appears that English again comes out to be the most important, with English listening and speaking reported at 87%, reading 82%, and writing 84%. Among the most important English skills, English listening and speaking were ranked highest with 30%, English writing at 19%, English reading at 16%, followed by French listening and speaking, French reading and writing, and then Italian listening and speaking. What situations were reported as causing barriers by the German export firms? As you can see from this pie chart, negotiating caused the greatest number of barriers at 27%, with telephone communications at 21%, correspondence at 19%, and exhibitions at 9%, also causing barriers. Now let's look at some data from 86 French exporters as reported by Marchessault et al. In 1999. The languages used and the importance of each are shown in this slide, and again, English comes out at the top of the list of languages used, 83%, and the top of the list of importance of languages at 73%. The next slide shows which skills were used most often. And again, English listening and speaking gets the highest percentage at 78%, English reading 73%, and English writing 69%. Which languages caused barriers for the French exporters? English was reported as the most problematic with 49%, followed by German, Spanish, Italian, Chinese, Japanese, and Portuguese. Which situations caused barriers? Again, the pie chart is revealing. Telephone conversations at 25% caused serious barriers. Correspondence at 19%. Negotiating at 17%. Exhibitions 10%. Traveling 10%. Presentations 8%, and so on. Slide. Of the 124 Spanish exporters, 76% of them report using English as the most frequent language, followed by French, German, Portuguese, and Italian. And in the next slide, we can see that English is rated as the most important language by 56.5% of these Spanish exporters. What are the language skills that they report using? English listening and speaking is reported by 70%, English reading 69%, and English writing 66%, followed by French, German, Italian, and Portuguese again. In the pie chart regarding situational language use, we can see that correspondence is extremely important at 20%, telephone conversations 19%, meetings 14%, traveling 14%, negotiating 11.9%, and so on. Now let's look at some implications of these research findings for English language learners, for corporations, and for us as teachers and directors of language programs. First of all, it's clear that for corporations, hiring plurilingual employees pays off, and providing English language training for key employees also pays off. These data clearly support these two conclusions. For English language learners, we can tell our learners with confidence that English skills are valuable in the job market and for promotion. And it seems to me, according to these data, speaking and listening skills are especially important. So when you have learners at the intermediate level or upper intermediate level who may have hit that plateau, you can encourage them to keep going because high proficiency English skills are valued in the workplace. Some implications of these findings for us as teachers and coordinators include the fact that curricula for many employees and future employees of companies should include at least the following: telephone skills, negotiating, correspondence in English, participation in meetings in English, and English for traveling, exhibitions, and presentations. It also seems that lessons should include exposure to many different accents and varieties of English, and this is due to the need for communication with native speakers of English from many different countries and regions, but also there's a great need for communication where English is the lingua franca. Let me close with a few comments. The next steps for TIRF include the following. We will continue to support research, and we will branch out to investigate training programs that support employees and corporations. We're also seeking major sources of funding from corporate and private sponsors to support targeted research projects. And we wish to influence policymakers and the public with the findings of language education research. By the way, TIRF is pleased to share many reference lists with researchers and teachers throughout the world, including one on the role of language in business and industry. These lists online.org and click on Resources for Researchers. Thank you very much for your attention, and let me close by thanking the organizers of this wonderful ABLA conference and TIRF's administrative assistant, Mr. Ryan Damerow, for his work on the slideshow and the data collection.